The Galactic Council chamber was unlike anything Jinwu Park had ever seen. It was a vast circular room that seemed to have no walls, just an endless view of stars. Representatives from 43 different species sat in floating platforms that hovered in a perfect circle. At the center was an empty space where the accused would stand. Today, that space held Commander Threx Jinwu, stood at Earth's designated platform for the first time. This was humanity's introduction to galactic civilization, and it was happening at a trial. Not exactly how he had imagined first contact would go, but life rarely followed the plan. The council speaker, a being that looked like a crystalline tree, began the proceedings. Its voice came through Jinwu's translator device, clear and formal. The Galactic Council recognizes the charges brought by the planetary government of Earth against Commander Threx and the Velnar Collective. The charges are unauthorized entry into a sovereign system, theft of biological specimens, murder of sentient beings, and attempted subjugation of an emerging civilization. Threx stood in chains made of some kind of energy field. He looked diminished, nothing like the confident commander who had broadcast his mockery of Earth's wildlife just weeks ago. His forearms were bound, his armor stripped away. The council speaker continued. Commander Threx, you stand accused of violating the Galactic Protection Act. How do you respond? Threx lifted his head. I did not know they were sentient, he said. We classified Earth as a Category 3 wilderness world based on our initial surveys. Our scans showed no advanced technology, no space travel capability, no unified planetary government. We followed standard protocols for collecting specimens from undefended worlds. You killed 12 humans after they tried to stop your collection operations, the speaker said. Did that not indicate sentience? Many animals fight when cornered, Threx argued. We interpreted their resistance as territorial instinct, not intelligent opposition. We had no evidence they were a council-worthy species. Jinwu felt anger rising in his chest, but he kept his face calm. He had been warned that the council valued logic over emotion. He needed to present Earth's case carefully. The speaker turned to Jinwu. Representative Park, you may present Earth's testimony. Jinwu activated his holographic display. Images of Earth appeared in the center of the chamber. Cities, technology, art, culture. Everything that proved humanity was intelligent and advanced. The Velnar claim they found no evidence of sentience, Jinwu said. But their own records show they detected our satellites, our radio transmissions, our orbital infrastructure. They chose to ignore this evidence because we did not have faster-than-light travel. He pulled up another image, showing the Velnar's broadcast where they had mocked Earth's wildlife. Commander Threx compared our planet's predators to those of other worlds and found them lacking. He used this as evidence that Earth was primitive, but he never asked the obvious question. Why are Earth's predators relatively weak? Dr. Yuna Kim appeared in the hologram. She had recorded this presentation specifically for the council. I'm Dr. Yuna Kim, xenobiologist, she began. The Velnar made a critical error in their assessment. They assumed that apex predator strength correlates with technological development. This is false. The hologram showed evolutionary charts, comparing Earth's predators to those of other worlds in the galactic database. Earth's predators appear weak because they never needed to become stronger, Yuna explained. 200,000 years ago, one species on our planet achieved apex predator status through intelligence rather than physical strength. That species is humanity. Once we became dominant, natural selection pressure on other predators decreased. Our wildlife evolved to avoid us, not to compete with us. The council members leaned forward, interested. This was apparently new information to them. Humans became apex predators through pack hunting, tool use, endurance, and strategic planning, Yuna continued. We can outlast any prey through persistence hunting. We can coordinate attacks across vast distances through complex language. We can learn from our mistakes and teach our children our knowledge. We don't need to be the strongest or fastest, because we're the smartest hunters this planet has ever produced. Jinwu took over the presentation. The Velnar's greatest mistake was assuming that because our wildlife was weak, we were weak too. They never considered that we were the reason our wildlife didn't need to be stronger. He showed footage from the ground battles, Velnar soldiers being taken down by human tactics, by traps and ambushes and coordinated attacks. Then he showed the orbital battle and the station boarding operation. We were not supposed to be able to reach orbit, Jinwu said. Our technology was not supposed to be advanced enough. But we used what we had creatively. We turned civilian satellites into weapons. We modified old missiles for new purposes. We flew spacecraft that were never designed for combat and turned them into boarding vessels. The Council watched the footage of human soldiers fighting through the station, using close-quarters combat techniques that clearly shocked the alien observers. "This is how humans hunt," Jinwoo said quietly. "We adapt, we learn. We use everything available to us. We coordinate, we plan, we wait for the right moment, and then we strike with everything we have." He paused, letting that sink in. Commander Threx claimed we were not a council-worthy species because we lacked advanced technology. But worthiness is not measured by technology alone. It's measured by intelligence, by culture, by the ability to solve problems and overcome challenges. Jinwoo pulled up the final piece of evidence. It was the message Threx had sent before the bombardment, where he had threatened to destroy Earth cities. The Velnar threatened to commit genocide when we resisted their illegal collection operations. They attempted to subjugate our entire planet, to turn us into caretakers for our own wildlife while they harvested our biosphere for entertainment. This was not a misunderstanding. This was deliberate. The council chamber fell silent. Representatives whispered among themselves in dozens of languages. Finally, the speaker raised a crystalline branch for quiet. "The council has heard the evidence. We will now deliberate." The trial recessed. Jinwoo returned to Earth's delegation area, where Dr. Hana Choi and Colonel Taewon Shin were waiting. They had come to the council station together, Earth's first diplomatic mission to the galaxy. "You did well," Hana said. The council seemed impressed by the presentation. "Impressed isn't the same as convinced," Jinwoo replied. He looked out at the stars. Somewhere out there were hundreds of civilizations, thousands of worlds. Earth was just one small planet at the edge of the galaxy. Would the council really accept them as equals? The answer came 3 hours later. The council reconvened and the speaker announced their decision. The council finds Commander Threx guilty of all charges. The Velnar Collective will pay reparations to Earth for damages caused. The collected specimens will be returned immediately. Furthermore, the Velnar are hereby banned from Earth's system for a period of 100 cycles. Threx lowered his head in defeat. "As for Earth," the speaker continued, and Jinwoo held his breath. "The council recognizes that initial assessments were flawed. Humanity has demonstrated intelligence, strategic capability, and technological adaptability. More importantly, you have shown the capacity for coordinated defense and the willingness to protect your own kind and your planet's biosphere." The speaker turned to face Jinwoo directly. "The Galactic Council extends an invitation to Earth to join as a member civilization. You will have full rights and protections under Council law. You will be allowed to establish trade, share technology, and participate in Council decisions." Jinwoo felt his knees go weak. They had done it. Earth was recognized. Humanity was no longer alone in the universe, but the speaker wasn't finished. However, the Council also issues a warning. "Your species has demonstrated significant combat capability, despite limited technology. Your tactics in ground warfare and close-quarters combat are unlike anything in our databases. You hunt with a patience and cunning that concerns several member species." The speaker's tone became serious. "You are apex predators, as you have proven. We accept you as equals, but we also ask that you remember what happened here. The Velnar underestimated you and they paid the price. Do not make the mistake of believing that all conflicts can be resolved through hunting." Jinwoo nodded. "We understand. Humans know the difference between hunting for survival and hunting for sport. We also know when to stop hunting and start talking." Over the next weeks, Earth began its integration into galactic society. Technology exchanges were arranged. Trade agreements were negotiated. Human students enrolled in galactic universities, and alien scholars came to Earth to study human culture. Dr. Yuna became the head of the newly formed Xenobiology Institute, working with alien scientists to understand the differences between Earth's evolution and that of other worlds. Her papers on apex predator development became required reading in galactic universities. Dr. Hana led the technology integration team, carefully studying alien technology and adapting it for human use. But she also taught alien engineers about human innovation, about how to make something work even when you don't have the perfect tools. Colonel Taewon became the first commander of Earth's new defense fleet. His voice was hard, angry. "This is unacceptable. We gave you the chance to cooperate." Commander Doyen Kang had been an astronaut for 15 years, but he had never imagined piloting a spacecraft into battle. He sat in the control room of the Korean Space Agency, watching hundreds of screens showing satellite positions, trajectories, and countdowns. Around the world, similar control rooms were coordinating the craziest plan humanity had ever attempted. 8 hours until bombardment, his assistant reported. Doyen looked at the orbital map. The Velnar fleet hung above Earth like a crown of thorns. 17 warships in that massive station, all armed with weapons that could turn cities to glass. Meanwhile, Earth had exactly 0 military spacecraft, but they had something else. Something the Velnar had not considered. Begin Phase 1, Doyen ordered. In orbit, thousands of satellites suddenly changed position. Commercial satellites, scientific satellites, old military satellites that had been inactive for years, even the International Space Station. All of them began moving, shifting into new positions using their maneuvering thrusters. The Velnar noticed immediately. The humans are repositioning their orbital infrastructure, a sensor officer reported to Commander Threx. Purpose unknown. Ignore it, Threx ordered. They're probably trying to hide their satellites from our bombardment. It won't matter. Our weapons can track anything in orbit. That was exactly what Threx was supposed to think. While the aliens focused on the satellites, they didn't notice the real threat. Hidden among the civilian spacecraft were hundreds of small packages, no bigger than refrigerators. Hana's team had been launching them in secret for weeks, disguised as normal satellite deployments. Phase 2, Doyen said. Launch the kinetics. The packages opened. Inside each one were dozens of simple tungsten rods, nothing more than metal cylinders. No explosives, no guidance systems, no power source. Just dense metal shaped into projectiles. The rods began to fall toward the Velnar fleet. They accelerated as they dropped, pulled by Earth's gravity, gaining speed with every second. By the time they reached the alien ships, they would be moving at several kilometers per second. Pure kinetic energy. The oldest weapon in human history, just falling rocks, but moving at orbital velocity. The Velnar shields activated automatically. Blue force fields flared across the alien vessels. The shields had been designed to stop energy weapons, missiles, and even meteorite strikes. They worked perfectly, deflecting the first wave of kinetic projectiles. But there were so many. Hundreds of rods falling from dozens of different angles. The shields held, but they were designed for occasional impacts, not continuous bombardment. Power levels began to drop. Sir, we're detecting energy drain, the Velnar tactical officer reported. The shields are holding, but we're using fusion cell reserves faster than expected. Threx frowned. This was unexpected, but not dangerous. Redirect power from non-essential systems. The shields will hold. He was right. The shields did hold. The kinetic bombardment was a distraction, nothing more. But that was all it needed to be. While the Velnar fleet was focused upward, dealing with the falling rods, they didn't notice the real attack coming from below. Modified intercontinental ballistic missiles launched from silos across Earth. But these missiles didn't carry nuclear warheads. Instead, they carried thousands of small penetrators, each one designed specifically to exploit the weaknesses Hana had found in Velnar hull composition. The missiles climbed into orbit, their trajectories carefully calculated to approach the fleet from the blind spots created by the kinetic bombardment. The Velnar point defense systems were occupied shooting down tungsten rods. They didn't see the real threat until it was too late. The penetrators struck 3 Velnar cruisers simultaneously. They punched through the hulls at vulnerable points where the shields were weakest, where the armor was thinnest. One cruiser lost main power. Another began venting atmosphere from a dozen puncture wounds. The third managed to activate emergency systems, but its weapons arrays were destroyed. "We're hit," the Velnar communications officer shouted. "Multiple hull breaches. Casualties across all decks." Threx stared at his tactical display in shock. How had the primitives done this? Their weapons shouldn't have been able to reach orbit, and even if they did, Velnar shields should have stopped them. "Pull back," he ordered. "All ships retreat to higher orbit. Get out of their weapons range." The fleet began to move, rising higher above Earth's surface. The remaining 14 ships formed a defensive formation around the orbital station. They were safe now, Threx thought. The humans couldn't reach them at this altitude. He was wrong. Captain Minho sat in the pilot seat of a modified space shuttle, watching the Velnar fleet retreat. Next to him was Sora, who had returned from Siberia just 2 days ago. Behind them, Crammed into a cargo bay meant for satellites were 20 of the best soldiers Earth could provide. They wore spacesuits modified for combat, and they carried weapons designed for zero gravity. "This is the craziest thing I've ever done," Sora said quietly. "Agreed," Minho replied. He checked his instruments. Around Earth, 17 other shuttles and private spacecraft were launching, each one filled with soldiers, each one on a collision course with the Velnar station. The plan was simple and insane in equal measure. The Velnar fleet had pulled back to higher orbit, leaving the station less defended. The station was massive, impossible to destroy from the outside. But it had docking ports for their collection ships. And where ships could dock, humans could board. Approaching the station, Minho reported. "Prepare for docking." The Velnar station loomed ahead, a ring of metal 3 kilometers across. It was beautiful and terrible, a monument to alien engineering. Minho aimed his shuttle at one of the smaller docking ports, trying to match velocity with the rotating station. Alarms blared. Velnar defense systems had detected them. Point defense lasers began firing, trying to shoot down the incoming human craft. 2 shuttles were hit immediately, exploding in bright flashes. The other 16 kept coming, weaving through the defensive fire using unpredictable flight patterns that confused the alien targeting computers. Minho's shuttle shook as a laser grazed the hull. Damage warnings flashed across his screen. He ignored them, focusing on the docking port. 50 meters, 30-10 impact. The shuttle slammed into the docking port hard enough to crack the view screen, but they were attached. Minho activated the docking clamps, sealing them to the station. "Breach in 30 seconds, Sora said, setting up the cutting equipment. Around the station, 15 other human craft were doing the same thing. Not all of them made it. 3 were destroyed by laser fire. 1 missed its docking port and careened into space. But 12 shuttles successfully attached to the station at different points. The breaching charges fired, cutting through the station's hull. Minho felt the pressure change as atmosphere vented into space. Then the inner door opened and he led his team into the alien station. They entered a cargo bay filled with containment units. Inside the units, Minho could see animals from Earth. Lions, bears, eagles, all frozen in stasis fields. The sight filled him with cold anger. "Move," he ordered. His team spread out, securing the immediate area. A door at the far end of the bay opened. Velnar security forces poured through, armed with energy weapons. They fired immediately, blue bolts of plasma filling the air. Minho's team took cover behind the containment units. This was not like fighting on Earth. In the confined corridors of the station, there was nowhere to run, nowhere to hide. This was close-quarters combat, room by room, the kind of fighting humans had been perfecting in urban warfare for generations. The Velnar were bigger, stronger, better armored, but humans had been fighting enemies bigger than themselves since the dawn of time. They knew how to use confined spaces to their advantage. Sergeant Yunji threw a flashbang grenade. In the enclosed space, the effect was devastating. The Velnar stumbled, blinded and deafened. Human soldiers moved forward, firing at point-blank range, aiming for joints and weak points in the alien armor. The battle moved deeper into the station. Room by room, corridor by corridor, humans fought through the Velnar defenders. It was brutal and bloody. Soldiers fell on both sides. But the humans kept pushing forward, their objective clear: reach the command center. Minho's team fought through 2 more security checkpoints. They lost 3 soldiers in the process, but they were getting closer. He could feel it. The resistance was getting stronger, which meant they were approaching something important. In another section of the station, Sora's team had encountered a similar situation. They were pinned down by heavy weapons fire in what looked like a barracks area. The Velnar had the advantage of numbers and better positioning. "We need a way through," Sora said, checking her ammunition. They were running low. One of her soldiers, a young Korean man named Hyun, had an idea. "The life support vents," he said, pointing up them. "They're big enough for a person." Sora looked at the vent covers. It was risky. The Velnar might have sensors in the ventilation system, but staying here meant certain death. "Do it," she ordered. Hyun and another soldier climbed into the vents while the rest of the team provided covering fire. The 2 soldiers crawled through the ventilation system, using a technique that human soldiers had used in countless battles on Earth, flanking the enemy B. The 7 days ended at midnight. The Velnar sent no response to Earth's ultimatum. Instead, they increased their collection operations, landing more teams across the planet as if to prove they could do whatever they wanted. Colonel Taewon Shin stood in the command center, watching the tracking displays. He was in charge of coordinating Earth's response, and he had spent the past week studying every piece of information Hana's team had gathered about the Velnar. He knew their patrol patterns, their rotation schedules, their communication frequencies. He knew them better than they knew themselves. All teams report ready, his communications officer said. Taewon looked at the clock. 4:01. The deadline had passed. Begin operations, he said quietly. 1,200 kilometers away, Lieutenant Soranam lay in the Siberian snow, completely invisible under her white camouflage. She had been in position for 48 hours, not moving, barely breathing, just watching. Her team of 6 Russian and Korean Special Forces soldiers was spread out in a wide circle around the Velnar landing site. The aliens had come to this region to collect wolves. They had been here for 3 days, moving through the forest with their usual confidence. Sora had watched them capture a pack of wolves just yesterday. The aliens had used force fields to immobilize the animals, then loaded them onto their ship like cargo. But the aliens had developed a routine. Every morning, 4 of them patrolled the perimeter, while the others worked inside the ship. Every evening, they all returned to the vessel. They never varied their schedule. They never posted guards at night. Why would they? No animal on any planet they had visited could threaten them while they slept. Sora watched the aliens begin their morning patrol. She counted them. 4 as expected. They moved in a loose formation, their weapons held casually. They were talking to each other, their translator devices making their conversation audible even at this distance. Only 2 more days here, one alien said. Then we moved to the Canadian site. This world is so easy, another responded. The creatures barely resist. On Valcor Prime, we lost 3 soldiers to the Predators. Here, nothing. Sora smiled grimly. She pressed her radio transmitter once. A single click. The signal was sent. Around the landing site, humans who had been invisible in the snow began to move. They didn't attack, not yet. They were positioning the trap. The aliens walked directly over the first set of charges and didn't notice. Why would they? The explosives were buried deep, covered with natural snow, undetectable to their sensors because they weren't active yet. The humans had learned that the Velnar shields could block almost anything, but they needed time to activate. The key was to give them no time. The aliens walked into the narrow valley exactly where Sora had predicted they would go. It was the logical route, the easiest path. They were following their training, their procedures. That was their mistake. Humans had learned millions of years ago that following the easy path was how prey thought. Predators made their own path. Sora pressed the detonator. The valley exploded. Not from the sides, where the aliens might have expected danger, but from above. Shaped charges sent 1,000 tons of snow and rock down on the aliens. Their shields activated instantly, blue force fields flaring to life. But shields needed something to push against. When an entire mountainside falls on you, there's nothing to push against. The weight just keeps coming. 3 aliens disappeared under the avalanche. The 4th managed to escape, running back toward the ship. Sora and her team were ready. They didn't shoot to kill. They shot to herd. Bullets cracked into the ice around the alien's feet, forcing it to turn. More shots came from the other direction. The alien ran the only way that seemed safe, deeper into the forest. It was fast, faster than any human. But speed didn't matter when you were running exactly where the hunters wanted you to go. The alien stepped into the hidden pit. It was only 3 meters deep, not enough to kill, but lined with sharpened stakes that pierced through the gaps in its armor. The alien's scream was not picked up by its communicator, because the pit was lined with material that blocked radio signals. Hana had designed it specifically. The alien's distress call never reached its ship. Sora and her team moved quickly. They had maybe 30 minutes before the ship noticed the patrol was missing. They worked in silence, retrieving equipment, covering their tracks. By the time they were done, it looked like the aliens had simply wandered into a natural avalanche and gotten lost in the forest. Sora checked her radio. Coded messages were coming in from other teams around the world. Same story everywhere. Success, success, success. In Indonesia, Captain Minho had led his team on a 3-day stalking mission. The Velnar collection team there was hunting for jungle predators. They had set up a base camp near a river. never realizing that human soldiers had been watching them from the trees for 72 hours. Minho had learned patience hunting deer in the Korean mountains as a boy. This was no different. You waited. You watched. You learned your prey's habits. Then you struck at the moment of maximum vulnerability. The moment came when the aliens split up. 6 went into the jungle to search for specimens. 4 stayed at the camp. Minho had hoped for this. Divide and conquer. The oldest human tactic in existence. His team didn't attack the camp. Instead, they followed the 6 aliens into the jungle. The forest here was dense, humid, filled with 1,000 sounds and smells. The Velnar moved carefully, their sensors scanning for animal life. They never thought to scan for humans. Minho's team used the jungle itself as a weapon. They had spent 2 days preparing the area, identifying every dangerous plant, every hidden drop-off, every patch of unstable ground. Now they guided the aliens through this maze of death using carefully placed sounds and movements. An alien stepped into carnivorous plants that had been transplanted to the path. The plants began to dissolve its leg armor. While it was distracted, another alien walked over ground that looked solid, but was actually a thin crust over quicksand. It sank to its waist before it realized the danger. The other aliens tried to help their comrades. That was when Minho's team triggered the traditional hunting traps they had enhanced with modern explosives. Nets dropped from the trees, but these nets were woven with monofilament wire that could cut through alien armor. Deadfall traps crushed aliens who thought they were taking cover behind trees. The aliens called for help. Their communication went through this time, but it didn't matter. By the time reinforcements arrived from the base camp, Minho's team was gone. All that remained were dead or dying aliens in a jungle that seemed to have eaten them alive. The aliens at the base camp searched for hours, but they found nothing. The humans had disappeared like ghosts. The Velnar commander decided it was too dangerous to stay. They abandoned the site and returned to orbit. 1 base down, dozens more to go. In Canada, Sergeant Yoonji Bai was demonstrating a different human advantage: adaptability. The Velnar had deployed aerial drones to patrol the area where they were collecting bears and moose. The drones were sophisticated with multiple sensors and weapon systems. Yoonji had grown up in a military family. Her father had been a falconer as a hobby. She remembered watching eagles hunt, how they moved, how they thought. Now she was using that knowledge in a way her father never could have imagined. The team had captured and trained 3 golden eagles over the past week. The birds wore tiny harnesses with small EMP devices attached. When Yoonji gave the signal, the eagles were released. The drone's sensors saw the birds but dismissed them as local wildlife. That was their last mistake. The eagles, trained to hunt drones in practice sessions, attacked with brutal efficiency. They struck the drones from above, their talons triggering the EMP devices on impact. The drones fell from the sky, their electronics fried. With the aerial surveillance gone, the Velnar ground team was blind. They activated their heat sensors to track warm bodies in the forest. Yoonji's team was ready for this too. They wore special suits designed by Hana's engineers that matched their heat signature to the local wildlife. The alien sensors showed them deer, bears, moose. They didn't show humans. The attack came from all directions at once. Arrows, not bullets. Arrows didn't trigger the aliens' automatic defense systems because they moved too slowly. But these arrows had explosive tips. They detonated on impact, and the aliens' shields, designed for energy weapons, offered little protection against old-fashioned shrapnel. The Velnar team retreated to their ship under heavy fire. They managed to take off, but not before losing half their personnel. Earth's first victory in the Canadian theater. Back in the command center, Taewon watched the reports flowing in. 12 Velnar sites attacked, 11 successful operations, 1 partial success, over 60 alien casualties in the first day of operations, but the cost had been high. 7 human soldiers dead, 15 wounded. The Velnar were not easy prey even when surprised. Taewon knew this was just the beginning. The aliens would adapt. They would change their tactics. The easy victories would end soon, but that was fine. Humans were good at adaptation too. Better than good. Humanity had spent its entire existence adapting to threats, learning from mistakes, evolving tactics. A message came in from orbit. Commander Threx was broadcasting to Earth. "You have attacked our collection teams," the alien said. 3 weeks passed and the Velnar did not leave. Instead, they built. A massive orbital station began taking shape above Earth. a ring of metal and light that could be seen from the surface even during the day. The aliens worked with impossible speed, their construction drones moving in perfect coordination. Captain Minho Lee watched the station grow from his office at the Korean Special Forces headquarters. He had been called to Seoul for an emergency meeting of military commanders from around the world. The room was filled with generals and admirals, men and women who had spent their careers preparing for wars against other humans. None of them had ever imagined this. "They're building containment facilities," a NASA representative explained, pointing at the holographic display. "Based on the structure, we estimate they're preparing to hold tens of thousands of specimens, maybe more." "They announced their intentions this morning," Jinwoo Park said from his position at the head of the table. He looked tired, like he hadn't slept in days. "They plan to harvest 10,000 Earth creatures over the next 6 months. They're setting up what they call safari zones across the galaxy. Earth wildlife will be the main attraction." Minho felt his jaw tighten. "And us, what do they expect humans to do?" "Watch," Jinwoo said bitterly. "They've designated us as planetary caretakers. We're supposed to help them identify the best specimens and ensure the remaining population stay healthy for future harvests." "That's insane," an American general said. "We should launch everything we have at that station. Nukes, missiles, everything." "We tried," a Chinese admiral admitted quietly. 3 days ago we launched a test strike. Conventional missiles, not nuclear. They didn't even make it out of the atmosphere. The Velnar shot them down before they got within 100 kilometers of the station." The room fell silent. Minho understood what that meant. The aliens could destroy any attack from Earth's surface before it became a threat. Humanity's most powerful weapons were useless. A woman entered the room, moving quickly to Jinwoo's side. Minho recognized her from the briefings. Hana Choi, one of Korea's top scientists. She was young, barely 30, but her eyes held an intensity that made her seem older. "We found something," Hana said without preamble. She connected her tablet to the main display. "A Velnar probe crashed in the Pacific last week. We recovered it. I've been studying their technology." The screen filled with technical diagrams. Minho was a soldier, not a scientist, but even he could see that the alien technology was far beyond anything Earth could produce. "Their shields are impressive," Hana continued. "They can stop high-energy weapons, deflect electromagnetic pulses, even repel kinetic projectiles moving below certain speeds. But that's not the important part." She pulled up a new file. "I also found their tactical database. Every combat simulation they've ever run. Every scenario they've prepared for. And I found a pattern." "What kind of pattern?" Jinwoo asked. "They've never fought pack hunters," Hana said. "Look at this." Every single combat scenario assumes 1 or 2 large opponents. All their tactics are designed around fighting creatures that are bigger and stronger than they are, but that hunt alone or in very small groups. They have no experience with coordinated attacks from multiple directions. No strategies for dealing with ambush predators that use tools and planning. Minho leaned forward. Now this was interesting. "You're saying they've never fought anything like humans," he said slowly. "Exactly," Hana confirmed. "Their entire military doctrine is built around their experience with other apex predators in the galaxy. Big, powerful, solitary hunters. They've never encountered a species that became apex predators through cooperation and intelligence instead of physical strength." Before anyone could respond, alarms started blaring throughout the facility. The main screen switched to a live news feed from Australia. Minho felt his stomach drop as he watched. A Velnar collection team had landed near a remote settlement. Local rangers had tried to stop them from capturing the native wildlife. The aliens had used their stun weapons at first, just like they had everywhere else. But when the rangers kept coming back, kept trying to defend their land, the Velnar had switched to lethal force. The camera showed bodies on the ground, 12 people dead. The aliens stood over them, seeming confused by the humans' resistance. One of the Velnar pointed a device at the camera and the feed went dark. The room erupted in anger. Generals shouted for immediate retaliation. Admirals demanded blood. Minho stayed quiet, watching Jinwoo's face. The diplomat looked different now. The last trace of hope for peaceful resolution had died in his eyes. Jinwoo raised his hand and slowly the room quieted. "They've crossed a line," he said softly. "They've killed us. They've declared, whether they realize it or not, that they see us as nothing more than obstacles. Animals to be moved aside." He stood, straightening his suit. "I'm going to send a message to the Galactic Council. I'm going to give the Velnar 7 days to leave Earth's system completely. And if they refuse? The American general asked. Jinwoo looked at Minho, then at Hana, then at each person in the room. Then we show them what Earth's real apex predator looks like when it hunts. The message went out that evening. Jinwoo spoke calmly, clearly, in front of every camera on Earth. The transmission was sent to the Velnar fleet and broadcast to the entire Galactic Council that the aliens had mentioned. This is Earth's final warning, Jinwoo said. You have 7 days to leave our system. You have taken our wildlife without permission. You have killed our people. You have treated us like primitive animals. You have made a grave mistake. We are not asking for negotiation. We are not seeking compromise. We are telling you to leave. If you do not, there will be consequences. The response came within an hour. Commander Threx's face filled screens across the planet. He was laughing. Consequences? Threx repeated, his amusement clear. From a species that cannot even defend its own atmosphere? From creatures whose strongest predators we collect like insects? He leaned forward. Your lions cannot harm us. Your bears are toys to our children. Your sharks are decorations for our aquariums. What exactly do you think you can do to the Velnar Collective? Jinwoo didn't answer. He simply ended the transmission. That night, Minho received his orders. He was to assemble a team of Korea's best Special Forces operatives. Similar orders were going out to elite units across the world. American Navy SEALs, Russian Spetsnaz, British SAS, Israeli commandos, Japanese Special Forces. Every nation was mobilizing their finest soldiers. But they weren't mobilizing for conventional warfare. Hana's research had shown them a different path. We're not going to fight them like an army, Minho told his assembled team. They were in a secure briefing room, 12 of Korea's most skilled soldiers. We're going to hunt them. He brought up Hana's analysis on the screen. The Velnar have never fought pack hunters. They don't understand ambush tactics. They've never faced an enemy that uses the environment as a weapon, that plans days in advance, that coordinates across vast distances. Minho pulled up a map showing predicted Velnar landing sites. Yuna had calculated where the aliens would strike next based on their collection patterns. They were predictable, following the same procedures on every planet they visited. We're going to teach them why humans became the apex predator on Earth, Minho said. Not because we're the strongest, not because we're the fastest, but because we're the smartest, the most patient, and the most dangerous hunters this planet has ever produced. He looked at each soldier in turn. They think they're hunting our wildlife. They're about to learn that they're the prey. Across the planet, similar briefings were happening in a dozen languages. Soldiers were moving into position, not to meet the enemy in open battle, but to track them, study them, and wait for the perfect moment to strike. The Velnar continued their collection operations, completely unaware that Earth's true apex predators were now watching their every move. The aliens had 7 days to leave, but Minho knew they wouldn't go. The Velnar were too arrogant, too confident in their superior technology. They had hunted on 400 worlds and never met resistance they couldn't overcome. They had never hunted on a world where the prey had learned to hunt back. The 7 days ticked down. The Velnar kept working, and in the shadows, in the forests and mountains and jungles of Earth, human soldiers waited with the patience that had made their species the deadliest thing on the planet. The hunt was about to begin. The ships appeared without warning on a Tuesday morning. Dr. Yuna Kim was drinking her 3rd cup of coffee when the alarm started screaming across the International Space Monitoring Center. She nearly dropped her mug as she ran to her station. The screens showed 17 massive vessels entering Earth's orbit, each one larger than any aircraft carrier humanity had ever built. "Get me Director Park," she said to her assistant, her hands already moving across the keyboard. "Get me everyone." Within an hour, every major government on Earth knew the truth. They were not alone in the universe, and their visitors had not asked permission to arrive. Jinwoo Park stood in the United Nations Emergency Council chamber, watching the live feed from orbit. He was one of Korea's top diplomats, but nothing in his 20 years of experience had prepared him for this moment. The alien ships were beautiful in a cold, mechanical way. They hung above Earth like jewels, their surfaces reflecting the sun. "We need to establish contact," Jinwoo said. "We need to show them we're intelligent, that we're civilized." The Americans agreed. So did the Russians, the Chinese, and everyone else. For the first time in decades, Earth spoke with one voice. They sent out signals in every format they could imagine. Radio waves, light pulses, mathematical sequences. They waited for a response. The response came 6 hours later, but not in the way anyone expected. A beam of light shot down from the largest vessel, landing in the African savanna. Cameras from wildlife organizations captured what happened next. A group of aliens emerged from the light. They were tall, with 4 arms and skin that looked like polished metal. They carried devices that hummed with energy. Without any ceremony or announcement, they began capturing animals. Lions were lifted into the air by invisible force fields. Elephants were frozen in place, unable to move. Zebras scattered in panic as the aliens moved through the grasslands with casual efficiency. The beings worked like farmers harvesting crops, showing no emotion, no hesitation. Yuna watched the footage with growing horror. "They're treating them like specimens," she whispered. "Like we're a zoo." More beams descended across the planet. In the Arctic, polar bears were collected. In the Amazon, jaguars and anacondas disappeared into alien containers. Sharks were pulled from the oceans. Crocodiles were snatched from rivers. The aliens moved across Earth, gathering predators like someone picking flowers. Then came the broadcast. Every screen on Earth suddenly showed the same image. An alien stood in what appeared to be a command center. The translation came through in multiple languages simultaneously. The alien technology somehow understanding and converting their speech perfectly. "I am Commander Threx of the Velnar Collective," the alien said. Its voice was deep and strange. "We have classified your world as Category 3 wilderness. Your planet contains various specimens of interest for our research and entertainment facilities." Behind Threx, holographic displays showed the animals they had captured. A lion roared silently in a containment field. A great white shark circled in a water tank. "These creatures represent your world's apex predators," Threx continued. His tone carried something that sounded like amusement. "We find them adequate for primitive world standards." Another alien appeared next to him, this one wearing what looked like a scientist's uniform. "Commander, shall we demonstrate the comparison?" "Yes, proceed." The screen split. On one side, a lion from Earth, on the other, a creature from an alien world. The alien predator was massive, covered in armor-like scales with 6 legs and a mouth full of teeth like swords. The comparison made the lion look like a house cat. "Your apex predators are slow," the scientist said clinically. "Their bite force is minimal compared to galactic standards. Their hunting strategies are basic. On most civilized worlds, these creatures would be prey, not predators." Threx gestured to more comparisons. Earth's grizzly bear next to an alien creature that was twice the size and covered in spikes. Earth's saltwater crocodile next to something that looked like a dragon. Every comparison made Earth's wildlife look weak and small. "We have hunted on 400 worlds," Threx said. "Your planet's creatures are among the least impressive we have encountered, but they will serve adequately for our younger students to study and for our entertainment districts." The alien leaned forward, and now his expression was clearly visible. It was the look someone might give to a particularly slow child. "We offer Earth a position as a protected wildlife preserve under Velnar management. You humans will serve as caretakers for your own planet's ecosystem. You will ensure the continued health of species we find valuable for collection. In return, we will not harvest your entire biosphere at once. We will take only what we need when we need it." Jinwoo felt his blood run cold. They were being offered the chance to be zookeepers for their own planet. "You have 72 of your hours to accept our terms," Threx said. "We will return for your answer. Continue your normal activities. Do not interfere with our collection operations." The broadcast ended. Every screen on Earth went dark. The UN chamber erupted in chaos. Diplomats shouted in a dozen languages. Some wanted to fight. Others wanted to negotiate. A few suggested immediate surrender. Jinwoo stood silent, his mind racing. Yuna called him from the monitoring center. "Jinwoo, I need you to see something." He took the call on his private screen. Yuna's face was pale, but her eyes were sharp. "They made a mistake," she said quietly. "A huge mistake." "What do you mean?" "They evaluated our wildlife. Lions, bears, sharks, crocodiles. They compared them to predators from other worlds and found them lacking." She paused. "But they missed the actual apex predator of this planet." Jinwoo felt understanding dawn on him like cold water. "Us. Exactly. Humans. We're the apex predator of Earth. We're the reason our wildlife doesn't need to be bigger or stronger or more dangerous. Because we already filled that role." Yuna's expression hardened. They think they're dealing with a primitive planet because our animals are relatively small. They have no idea what we actually are. What are we? Jinwoo asked, though he already knew the answer. We're the species that hunted mammoths to extinction with pointed sticks. We're the species that turned wolves into pets and horses into transportation. We're the species that conquered every environment on this planet, from the deepest oceans to the highest mountains. She leaned closer to the camera. We're persistence hunters, Jinwoo. We don't have to be the strongest or the fastest. We just have to be smarter and more patient than anything trying to kill us. Jinwoo looked at the darkened screen where Threx's face had been moments before. The alien had compared Earth's predators to those of other worlds and found them wanting. But he had never asked the right question. Why were Earth's predators relatively weak? The answer was simple and terrifying. Because they never needed to evolve extreme defenses. The true apex predator of Earth had already claimed that position millions of years ago. Get me the military leaders, Jinwoo said. All of them. Every nation. What are you planning? Yuna asked. The Velnar gave us 72 hours to accept their terms, Jinwoo said. His voice was calm, but underneath was steel. I think we should use that time to show them exactly what kind of predator they're dealing with. Yuna smiled. It was not a pleasant smile. I'll start analyzing their technology. If they want to study Earth's apex predator, they're going to get a very educational experience. The call ended. Jinwoo turned to face the assembled diplomats and world leaders. They were still arguing, still panicking, still treating this like a political crisis that could be solved with words and treaties. He cleared his throat. The room fell silent. Stop, he said quietly. This isn't a negotiation. This is a hunt, and we've been the hunters on this planet for 200,000 years. Outside, the Velnar ships continued their work, collecting specimens, cataloging Earth's wildlife, completely unaware that they had just made the worst mistake in their civilization's history. They had mistaken humanity's mercy for weakness. They had confused our protection of other species for an inability to be dangerous ourselves. They were about to learn the difference between an animal and a predator who had learned to think.